And there's all kinds of gaming content associated with it, and really cool stuff. The other piece is what my 8 and 10-year-old will tell you that they love, is going to be the augmented reality. So whether it's Pokemon Go or Harry Potter, you're relying on a device to augment the space in front of you. And so there's this is a very fast growing field, also really big in the gaming world, but also in the retail space. You'll see a lot of really big examples of companies using this. So where does zSpace fall in all of this? And just to tell you how creative we're not, there is a X and a Y axis. We are the Z axis. So we are that space in between, which is where that comes from. And we have a laptop and a desktop where we're blending both virtual reality, where you get that one-on-one experience, and then, but you're also augmenting the space in front of you. So whether today that's going to be disassembling a car, a robot, a cow, taking apart a human cadaver. There's a lot of different pieces that you can do with that same device, but our content is really designed to support the career and technical education space. So what is zSpace? I'm going to show you that in a little clip to help bring that together. And I think I forgot to share sound. Yes, I did hear somebody say we're recording this. Let me share my sound. And
welcome to the real world of virtual reality on the zSpace platform. What is zSpace? It's a tabletop virtual reality that's transforming education today. zSpace functions as your typical Windows PC until you open the zSpace application, and then the magic really begins. Long story short, zSpace tracks the user's eyewear and stylus in real time, allowing the user to comfortably reach in and interact, move around, dissect, blow up, or change different variables within the environment.
awesome. So I hope that kind of paints the picture of what zSpace is. What I really want you all to know is where we are. So we are in over 2,000 school districts across the country, and we have over 1 million students that use our product. Now, this is going to be a combination of K-12 traditional academics. We do have a wonderful package for those that are looking for cross-curricular solutions. So all your sciences, biology, chemistry, physics, social studies, even some really great elementary mathematics and geometry. That's also in there, but that side of the house is run by my partner named Dr. Joe Parlier. He's a former associate superintendent in Georgia, and he handles the K-12 side of the house. So I'm sure if you have any questions on that, we won't cover that today, but Bluegrass can help you connect with that space as well. Our focus today is going to be on the career and technical education. This map is also available on our website, zspace.com. You'll go straight down, it says our customer. You can drill down and see individual customers. It won't tell you how big the implementation is, but it will tell you who's using zSpace. And we update this about every 30 days, so you can check back and you'll see some different pieces and parts. So from a high level, we cover 12 out of the 16 clusters federally. So this is that picture to let you know what we provide. The one device is going to service 12 out of your 16 clusters that are acknowledged by the Carl Perkins Act and the federal documents with the DOE. This is a list of kind of a high-level overview of our applications. As I mentioned before, things like Newton's Park is our physics application, Euclid Shapes is an elementary application, but down at the bottom were the ones we're going to focus in today, where we have Human Anatomy Atlas, we have virtual EKG, automotive, veterinary, and robotics and manufacturing. We're going to welding, we're going to dig right into those as well. So if I could give you the best one-word takeaway is think about DICE. This is an acronym that was created by Dr. Jeremy Bailenson out of Stanford. He is one of the thought leaders and foremost researchers. So if you're looking to answer the question today of how does this impact, and you don't want it to come from zSpace that we paid for it, you want to go to Dr. Jeremy Bailenson website, or I can refer to one in Texas Tech. Dr. Rebecca Height is another one, or Old Dominion. These are researchers that are focusing on career and technical education and how AR, VR is impacting the classroom, because we know it's somewhat new space, but it's really not technology. It's been around for many, many years. But when we think about DICE, it's dangerous. We're going to do things today that normally be dangerous, would normally be impossible, counterproductive. So it would ruin those instructional minutes and not necessarily be a good use of our time. And traditionally, they would be very expensive. And those are some of the things we're going to try to accomplish today. So keep those things in mind. You'll hear me reference them throughout the presentation. So as we start to build, one of our really we're honored and blessed to be sponsored, endorsed by NOCTI. John Foster is the CEO, and his organization, NOCTI, the National Organization of Credentialing or Competency Training Institute, is, some of you are very familiar with it. They are a certifying body, and they are CTE to the core. That's what they do. But we are an AR/VR product that they have, we align our content to support the NOCTI umbrella of certifications. Now, this isn't to say we don't support and supplement other industry certifications, particularly something like ASE is a really popular one with automotive service excellence. We absolutely supplement those, but this is just our partnership. And during our PD process, what we do is we do crosswalks. And in those crosswalks, we will take you through, if you're learning to be an RN or a CPT, respiratory therapist, if you're earning a NOCTI credential, we're going to align that crosswalk once you have the device in the PD process. And you'll see this theme throughout all of our applications. So the first one we're going to cover today is allied health and what that looks like in this new environment. So this is a sample of the blueprint. So the first thing we address is, how are you going to use AR and VR in a classroom? It doesn't matter if this is brick and mortar. If you were able to see my background before, that was just the old, let's call it the old way of a traditional lab setting of somebody that has a zSpace application, a health classroom. But we start with the blueprint, and these are the things you're going to do with zSpace. And we want to enhance the classroom, but we don't want to remove the wonderful instructors that exist. So what that looks like is that you'll see things here where communication and employability, basic computer skills. Of course, this is a computer, so we check off that objective, but we can go down to some of the anatomy and physiology, pathology, where it talks about students need to understand the relationships of body systems when providing it to patient care, or structure and function of body systems. That's really looking at the models and understanding how the body is put together. We can do that in zSpace, and you can do that. And I'm going to show you that very soon. What we also don't do is we don't talk about legal and ethical, because that's where the star of the show and that instructor brings in their experience when they talk about things like HIPAA and the patient's Bill of Rights. That's not something that we feel should be done virtually. That's a relationship that we feel that the student should have with the instructor, and they can speak to their experiences. Went a little fast. So again, high level, if you offer any of these credentials or certifications inside of your programs, this is going to be a great tool for you to accomplish this, whether this is in face-to-face, a blended model, a completely remote model. We're going to start to show you what that looks like. So going further, this is going to be a layout of what it is. I'm going to show you some video clips to kind of get you excited about it. Think about all those models that you would traditionally have in a classroom. You would have all these spread out, and then the next thing you know, you're missing half your brain. Now, my wife tells me I'm missing half my brain, but this case, I'm just talking about the video. Or if you're missing the lungs, you start to miss the left lung. Those are things that don't happen in the applications. You're not going to lose these body parts, and they're expensive to replace. So there's all these endless detailed models. Inside of these detailed models is going to cover all your medical terminology. It's also going to, one of the really cool things is it translates it. This particular application translates into Spanish, French, Mandarin, English as well, of course. So it will do it right there, and it will let them see that medical terminology in their native language. Of course, we also often offer the Latin definitions that are associated with this as well, and it will actually read it to them. So what that kind of looks like, your first glimpse. So this would be an example where I want to explore the human body for the first time. That's the muscular system. So I'm going to go up to the little waffle on the top left, and I'm going to come in. I can explore all the different body systems, the heart. In this case, I'm going to click on the brain. I'm clicking on it here. And this is how the instructor can do. They could talk through this the entire time in a remote setting, record this video. Here it would say the lobus frontalis. It would read it to me. There's my medical terminology associated with it. And what's really powerful is I'm going to go to my stethoscope, and this is going to show me all the physiology and the disease and condition associated with that particular body part. So at this point, I could have recorded this video. I could have talked just like we're doing now, whether it's Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Google Hangout, big blue button, whatever you want to do, the instructor can make this video. And I'll give you an example, real life. This is going on in Ben Peterson. He's the CTE director down in Northeast ISD, Texas. And what he's done is he's taken his laptop cart, he's distributed it to his teachers, and now his allied health teachers are going to pre-record their lessons in this environment. They're going to upload them to their Canvas system. So these students will have access to this. And they're being very proactive in doing this. That way, no matter what the model looks like in August, they're prepped to have a blended model, a remote learning model, or a face-to-face model. They have started to do that now. And this is an example of what that video looks like. So I also want you to see a sample of what the lessons look like for those. So I'm going to take here, let's go with the lymphatic system. This is all available on the website. You can go to zSpace.com right now. There's no sign up paywall behind all this. We put this stuff out for you. We have a wonderful zSpace community of educators that take this and manipulate it and make it their own. But think of us as the skeleton, pun intended, for us to get you started. So the first thing we do is we give you an activity plan. And this is going to start out, this is the baseline of the lesson. So during the resource, this is free. You can go out and use this. We got your key terms. We cover your materials and resources. A little bit of a taste here. You see where the educator and us comes out, and that whether you're a Marzano or your Danielson district or your teacher evaluation, we know that understanding every day what the essential question is, the objectives, and how we're going to introduce the lesson are great foundations to any lesson. So what you're going to do is you have that here, and we give that to them. So new teacher, old teacher, in between teacher, it doesn't matter. This is just your skeleton to modify your lesson. So you have this as your template. And then as we go back, the students, whether you're a Google district or whether you're an Office 365 district, this is going to be the same document. So it's going to go right into your classroom and you can distribute that out to your students. Again, this is free. Go ahead and take it now. If any of your instructors want to use it, a sample of what that looks like is this, where this is what the student is going to do. So they're going to explore where we were just seeing the brain. They're going to explore the lymphatic system. They're going to look through all those models. They're going to cover, and it's telling us, click the lymphatic system tile. It's going to coach them through that process. So when the student has the laptop in front of them, they can do this all themselves and everything's going to come off the screen at them. Or if I'm doing kind of a whole group model, I'm connected to an interactive flat panel. That's another way you can do this as well. So all of this is available on the website. You see all of these lessons also available. So you can dig in these, you can take a peek at them anytime you like. They're all here, your choice. So one of the things I want you to know too, in case you really want to spend some time with, I'm going to take this link right here before I get into automotive. I'm going to drop this into, I see we've got a few questions, so I'll pause for a minute and answer these. I'm going to drop this link into the chat. This is for a follow-up of a deep dive. Really, if your focus is allied health, we're doing that shortly after this one at 3 o'clock. As this one ends, we're going to go into a really deep dive. But it's just going to be focused on health. So if you have that question, we're going to dig really deep into that one. Blackboard as well. Great question. I'm sorry I missed Blackboard or Schoology. Yeah, you can. Because our files save as an MP4 or a PDF, it does not matter whether you're Blackboard, Canvas, Schoology, all of this will go into those LMSs and students will be able to access these videos or the content associated with it at any time. That's perfectly fine. Great question. Thank you very much. to the two, looks like Jane and Melinda. Great questions. So if that's all the questions for now, what I'll do is I will roll into automotive. So I'm going to go back and share my screen again. Great questions, keep them coming. And the same thing. So as I mentioned before, we start with the foundation of a NOCD blueprint. So these are things that somebody can do. And I'll tell you right now, this is one of my most exciting ones. So I may get really excited. I'm going to try and stay calm. Automotive and zSpace is amazing. And I love what we're doing. I'm really proud of what the team has put together. And we inspect and test lubrication systems. You can see the things. You know, we don't try to say you're going to check the fluid on the transmission. That's something that's got to be done in person. You need to do that. Perform the in-vehicle transmission check. That's going to happen with the instructor going over them. But when we think about ASE, and there are things, this is a sample of somebody prepping for the A1 exam, where it says remove the cylinder head, disassemble, we can stretch clean and prepare for inspection. It's going to disassemble cleanly, but you can go through that process inside of zSpace. You can inspect valves, you can inspect the push rods. I can go down and look at the connecting rods and the camshaft bearings. I can do all of that inside of zSpace. And those are a way to accelerate learning in the classroom. Students aren't going to necessarily have access to this at home, but this will allow them to do it. So what that looks like is this is Automotive Expert, and we've set it up to mimic if somebody was prepping for an ASE exam. And you'll see it's engine, suspension, steering, lighting, electrical. The electrical is a growing one. We have a brand new one for engine diagnostics. It's going to come out in August 1st, and I'm really excited to be a part of this bundle, but that's forthcoming very soon. I'm happy to take that offline. If there's any of you that are really interested in that, we can explore that one a little deeper. But what it looks like is everybody's got these in your labs. Everybody's got transmissions. We say, okay, everybody, students, stand around it. Let's talk about it. But they're not engaging with that. They're staring at it, and it's a static item because we know they could get hurt. That transmission will take off your fingers. Not always the best thing. We give you that same transmission in a virtual sense. Then they can shift it here, and they can go through it. Here's the engine. They can, that same engine, we're picking that up, we're manipulating it, we're going through it, we're exploring it. So this is kind of the textbook. What's really great about this application is if an instructor has any previous PowerPoints that they've used, you can actually import those PowerPoints into this application, and then I could lay this model right over top of the PowerPoint. That's also something we do in the professional development process, where so much of our automotive instructors have this content already, but they want to elevate it, or they need to really be able to do it remotely or in a blended model. So we're able to take that and really elevate it for them and help them in that process. So what that looks like after you've done the textbook version, if you will, is when we start to get our hands on, and this is the mechanic application. So this is going to be a clip of somebody disassembling. You have at the top, you'll see disassemble or assemble. And what they're going to do is they'll select the dot, the system appropriately that they're working on. So in this case, the student's going to look at the transmission system. So as they go into the transmission system, on my right-hand side, you're going to see my tools. So my 14mm sockets, my standard hex wrench, pliers, all the wide variety of tools that you would see. And you see right here, I'm being guided through. It's flashing green. It's telling me up top what I'm supposed to be doing. So the student is doing all of this. I'm grabbing the proper tool. I'm coming back over. It's flashing green. It's coaching me through the process. So what we've done is we have a 3-step process inside this application. What you are witnessing is the first version where somebody is going to be taught how to do this and get the repetitions. So let's talk about students who have a various IEP needs or a 504. This is a way to accommodate them and allow the instructor to still give them meaningful and purposeful, actionable, hands-on experiences. This allows them to do it, and more importantly, it allows the instructor to get real-time feedback in what that's doing. They don't have to be monitored. They didn't lose any tools. They didn't hurt themselves, but this really matters. So a great example of how this application is being used is in Renton College in Seattle. And what they've done, this is a post-secondary institution, And what they've done is they've taken these laptops and they're going to send them home to the student. They're going to go through these repetitions and they're going to get that. And then they're actually going to turn that back into the instructor, and they're going to have the report of what they just did. So as I mentioned, the guide, training, and exam, you can go through the different subparts. You don't have to go through, step one every single time. You can if you like them to. This is an example of what it looks like, as I mentioned earlier. High level, I could project this on a screen. I could use this on an interactive smart board, a Prometheum, whatever you like. It could be projected. We could all go through this as a whole group, and then I could release you to the lab, whether you're going to get your hands on the vehicle itself or you're going to be in a small group. Real flexibility to accommodate any style of model. And when they're done, this is an example of that formative assessment, that what it gets and what you're going to get put back out. So after they went through that transmission, this is the report going back to those questions you had. This very report, when you click save, it goes to the desktop, and then the student can submit that on whatever, again, Blackboard, Schoology, Canvas, whatever system you would like. So then the instructor is just going back and reading this PDF, and they can go through and say, hey, I see when you got to the torque converter, you struggled. Did you just grab the wrong tool? Or was it something that you really just didn't remember? So they can have that meaningful conversation. So I'll pause for that and go into our question queue and stop sharing and see what I got. Let's see here. As a Bluegrass customer, yeah, I mean, Bluegrass is absolutely those of you that are interested in adding zSpace to your school, you're going to want to absolutely contact your Bluegrass representative to help you with that, and they can answer all your questions about any of that and what your model would look like. So if it's Aaron or Meredith or Frank or Steve, the whole team is there to help you. That's a great question, Robert. I apologize. I don't know which local representative is there for you, but Bluegrass is there for you, and they can help you gain access to this. Any other questions? I think we're okay. All right, I'm going to keep on rolling. So that's a really fun one. Boom. So now we're going to move into manufacturing. Oh, I got one more question here. Let's pop that up. All right, I couldn't see that one. Sorry, we like to. Oh, yeah, no, so great question. Yeah, this is, zSpace is a hardware no different than anything else. You would have to have the zSpace hardware, whether you were gonna, if you're looking at adding the hardware, you would need that. Best way to disinfect on a campus. We have CDC guidelines, but I can just tell you, we can share that with you. The most common way is that a lot of people use, if you remember those UV bin lockers that we used to use for our old biology big goggles, our glasses are the same way. So you take it, and just like these little glasses right here, these are it. That's all it is. So in my zSpace right now, I would be having that experience. I would be grabbing my stylus or my torch, and that's what's going to do. So that's all that's needed to do that for cleaning. So you can hang those in the locker, and those can clean them. Of course, there are basic pieces in there. So aviation maintenance, that's a great one. Great segue. As the questions keep coming in, let me go ahead and show you how we are serving that. So what we have is, when we talk about manufacturing, that's really listed as just what the cluster is that it serves. And that's really broken into mechanical, which is going to be all your fundamental pieces, seals, and gears and sprockets and widgets that come into it. And then fluid, hydraulics, pneumatics. We also have separate systems for that where students can be exposed to that. So again, just I'll briefly move through this one. When we talk about NOCD, here's the setup. There's 33 different options that we have for you. So what that looks like is that these are the fundamentals that we would teach. So in a aviation program and a pre-engineering program, you would use this as the, you're funded it, you're teaching your foundation, and what that looks like. And I think one of the things I want to remember, even though we're doing this as in a webinar and you're seeing a three-dimensional object in a two-dimensional way, remember that when you have the glasses on, this is augmented and virtual reality. It actually will jump out at you and you will see it in that environment. So that's the other piece that I want to make sure, and I've got a video at the end I'll show you to really let you see. But this is an example of a planar 4-bar, something. So this is one that we have in Northeast Arkansas as an aviation program we have that uses us. And this is doors. This is a standard planar 4-bar is how we open up doors a lot of the times, and this is a way they're teaching it and they're bringing it together. The camshafts and the mechanism. It's going to cover all of the geometry and the mathematics associated with it, and it's going to allow students to see that connection. That's what's going on with this application as well. It'll cover those. After they've got those, we go into the fluid power. So as they're using hydraulics or fluid to power, we actually allow them to build a circuit. This is a sample of a vane pump, particularly used in, again, a wide variety of engineering programs where they're covering the working processes. You're going to be able to disassemble that vane pump, explain what all that's going on, the different parts, reset it, bring it back together. We're going to go through the sectional view, which I know for my post-secondary institutions is a really valuable teaching method, and you're going to be able to cover that and see it. The perspective view is really good for my additive manufacturing programs because you can remove that piece and allow them to see, well, when we talk about mold injection, this is how that whole piece is impacted. If something cracks, it's not just replacing that little piece. They get that visual representation. And of course, you can hide pieces and parts. So a lot of flexibility that goes inside of these applications. And again, you would have that and you would have the glasses. The student could pull that out, manipulate it, look at it, look inside, and understand how it's being used. I think I doubled my slide. Sorry about that. So once you've got, if we think about it in the full run, is once you've got the fundamentals of all the pieces and parts that go together, you understand whether it's a hydraulic or pneumatic powered system. We want you to be able to start to look at some blueprinting and start to look at building these systems yourself. So we give you some schematics, some standard ones to let you get started. And then the next thing we do is we actually allow them to build it. Where traditionally we know they would come to the shop and do this. We're going to allow you to click on the task building. This is the ones we give you. Also set to be released where you can, the instructor can preset what they want and they could give them the schematic and say, build it. We kind of give you some to get you started, but this is a case where they, here we are, we're grabbing a solenoid. We're going to put that down. This is a two-way, two-position solenoid, so we understand the actuator and what it's going to be doing. So if you're teaching something like Pascal's law, it's a way which we know is taught in automotive as well as manufacturing. It's going to be a way to really teach that in a different way and understanding what's going on. So here we go. The student is going to put together the pipe. They're going to start to run what's going on. Going to connect to my A, and I'm building this system. So nobody's being hurt, no fluids are being lost, no parts are being broken, and this can be recorded and turned into the instructor, and they could talk through it and then understand why they were doing it, why they built the way they built the things that they built. So I hope that helps that one understand a little bit. Well, so before, I know you guys are doing great about adding questions in, so I'm going to exit out of my screen for a minute before I get into robotics maintenance. Awesome. So far, great questions. Keep them coming. I'll pause. I know we're going a little fast, but there's a lot of you out there asking fantastic questions. And I think that one was pretty straightforward with that. It really blends out pretty well with a number of programs. All right, no questions. We're going to keep it going. Or you're saving all your good ones for the end, which I like that too. So moving on to robotics. This is one of our newest applications, something I'm really, really excited about. It's similar to automotive. We've taken the same approach where that we give you the expert version, which is going to be like your textbook and teaching the core foundation and components. And then the mechanic is where you're actually going to disassemble and you're going to get into the maintenance. So we're going to teach all the core pieces here. The composition, the joint, the chematic accesses, something that's really, it's impossible to see those. You want to be able to do that in a virtual sense. And again, coming back to pneumatics, hydraulics, and the electrical system. So this one is a sample of what that robot is and what's going on. It's going to show you the different accesses. And then we also give this first time, we let them expose to a, in this case, it's going to be the teach pendant. So they would hit that dead man switch. They would go over and grab the safety. We start to teach them about the concept of tag in, lock out, all those OSHA standards. We've kind of baked those into the applications that they're going to be able to use this and do it virtually and not worrying about breaking it, because I love these Fanuc robots, whether it's Fanuc, or Festo, all of those. I love those robots. They're amazing. They're expensive, and they should be treated as with great respect. And we know that when something goes wrong with them, we got to call out a tech to support them. So this is a way for a student to take apart a servo motor that they're not traditionally going to be able to do, is to take apart those servos. They're not going to have access to this. And we really only see these being used at the, post-secondary have a lot larger budget. You can do these things. And my secondary students are starting to use these because it's just more cost effective to allow the students to do these and have access to these robots in a virtual sense. So when we have safety training, always start out with safety. It's going to be the same thing. You have to lock in, lock out, tag in, tag out. You have to put on your proper guards every time you do it. But then you're going to go in and you'll be able to disassemble this robotic. In this case, it's taking apart the servo and letting them do that. Something you would never do inside your program for one voiding your warranty is a simple one. But what that looks like is it allows you to give them access to it. And in this case, this is that application where we're going to start to look at the principles of it. We can break down the core pieces of that robot. We can look at them all individually. We can understand how they come together and how they move and what's going on here. So then after that, they have the principle. They're going to go into the structure of it. They're going to talk about that individually. What is the structure of that arm? You can explore it. You can disassemble it. You can enlarge it. You can take it apart. You can turn it around. Something you would not be able to do in the real-time setting unless you had these set aside. They're often very heavy and people could be hurt. So we're also giving you a safe way to explore and use these products. And this is where you see you go in and you're going to disassemble that. So the tools and the components are all there. You're going to be guided through that process and it will take them to that. So I'll pause for that one and take any questions that we have in there. So far, so good. Awesome. So now we are going to be in ag. So our ag and vet programs. And I think in my experience across the 50 states and then my own personal academies, the first thing you got to decide is, are you going to be a plant, animal, or mechanic, ag mechanic based program? So regardless of either the answer to that questions, we have a solution for you in that world. So if it's ag mechanics, you can see here, there's some different gears, AC motors, parts that would be a part of that. But also if you're ag, you're talking about your cash crops. You're going to be able to explore these cash crops and dissect and look at them at a cellular level. Also from a cadaver standpoint, one of the largest views for us is that dissection of cats or even dissecting of the fetal pig. Because there's obviously no disposing of it. There's no smell. We are very PETA friendly, that you get a chance to explore these and they can completely disassemble and do whatever they like. They're not going to hurt it, and it will always, with a click of a button, come back to normal. And in light of the current state of the world, one of the things we're really proud about is there's a fair amount of microbiology. So when we talk about E. coli, we do have the coronavirus. It's been around for a long time, but you're able to dissect that. So you talk about making learning relevant. This is a way for students to be able to do something that is all dangerous, impossible, counterproductive, and I'm sure it would be really expensive to have your own coronavirus laboratory. So we check the box on everything in there, and it allows you to explore these things in a secondary or post-secondary lesson. You differentiate that lesson based on the needs of your students, and it allows you to do that. But that's really how we've designed most of my ag programs. Are really doing it to prep their students for their FFA and their student skills activities, so they win, because we know that gains them scholarships and that helps them out, and that's what they're using for a lot of that. But you have access to these, and that's all inside of it. Also in the ag mechanics, we know a lot of the time is the welding. Now I put it in here, but please understand that of course this is a standalone. I just find that most of our users, they are using our welding application as an alternative in the ag mechanic programs. It's very popular, as well as in the secondary market. I can also say that one of the growing places that if you happen to have juvenile justice that falls into your area, or you're working with some WIOA options and adult learners, this is another way to give somebody exposure to it. Our best use case for this is when you're teaching safety training. This allows you to give them some exposure and let them start to understand the core principles of welding. Our welding application does MIG and stick. So what it does is it has speed, distance, trajectory, and angles. We are covering the foundations. They're going to be able to have 4 different options that they can take through. These are all different types of welds. Of course, they would learn about these welds, and they would be wanting to get a hold of this and practice. And then once they do it, it's a completely self-guided process. So they're going to come through it. You're going to see down at the bottom, you're going to get some instant feedback of, their speed was 68% correct. They followed the path 77% of the time. This is all going to be recorded up in the big cloud. The instructors can see this, so they can have 10 kids welding, all different styles of welds, and they're not going to lose anything that they're doing. Our best use, again, it's really about exposing them. It's a cheap alternative to allow them to get their hands in welding, especially when you're using it as a recruiting tool. It's much easier to pick up a laptop and go build your programs and come in and say, hey, did you like that? I'll tell you one of my favorite stories about it. It was as a recruiting tool, was used down in South Florida, that they went into the culinary classroom and the student asked, and the young lady was a baker. And because she got 100%, and they realized her hand was so steady from baking and making cakes that she should really look into welding. She got a high wage, high demand career, and the young lady ended up trying it. And it was all because she had a chance to see this and do it. And that was something that was really exciting. Just a great anecdotal story. So I'll pause for a minute. We're coming near the end, and see if there's any questions. Sweet. All right. Well, in that case, I've got a couple more pieces to share with you, and then we'll open it up for questions here. So just if you're not aware, one of the other great pieces when we talk about 3D modeling, and we want to give a chance to allow students, we have a relationship with Autodesk and particularly Tinkercad, and that you can, anything you're making, you can actually bring that in. So this is something, a valve, multitude of programs, endless options that could use this at both post-secondary or secondary. You can have this, they would be creating it. They built this, they're getting their exposure to the CAD, and this can then be exported into zSpace. So it's a great way to give them an opportunity to understand what 3D modeling and prototyping. And we have a school in North Texas, it's University of North Texas, who has a great, they use this all the time. It's an easy solution for them. It doesn't require really much of anything from the instructor. The students can go on and create. And then when it's, when it's done, that comes right into this environment. And North Texas uses this for prototyping before they go to do any 3D printing, because often students will miss certain elements because they're building in a two-dimensional plane. So when you actually put it into zSpace and it augments it and puts it into virtual reality, you can pick it up and manipulate it and turn it in different ways. They're able to see that before it goes into printing. And if anybody wants to know more about that North Texas model, I'm happy to share that University of North Texas little clips and how they do with it as well. And this is just an example of what that would look like. So as we come to an end, I think the other piece I wanted you to see is the real-time action and what this looks like when the instructor can drive this. This is one of our CTE specialists, Nikki Lester. She's also a former CTE director, but somebody asked her to give them a demo of what this would look like in a remote learning, the teacher sitting at home and doing it. And this is something, so I hope you enjoy.
Hello, today we are going to cover a little bit of Human Body Atlas and some information on carpal tunnel through one of our models, just so that you can see what it looks like in a 2D and augmented type of view during a recording if technology is not available for students to actually work with, but maybe for the instructor to have available. So to get here, we're going to open Human Body Atlas, which I've already done, and I'm going to open up my menu. Under my 3D models, I'm going to go ahead and select the muscular system view, and I'm going to go under the wrist and hand. Now, notice this is a 2D view, and the reason that we're going to do that is we're going to flip through a few things that can actually be looked at here. And one of those would be going ahead and selecting particular areas, because how do we know where carpal tunnel affects the wrist and the hand? So by going ahead and selecting some different areas, I'm just going to kind of explore. And in here, I went ahead and selected the abductor pollicis brevis. So I can get the wording or the exact pronunciation to be read to me based on the sound if I have external speakers or headphones on. I then can go ahead and click on the book icon, which will give me the full definition of the abductor pollicis brevis. Now, down here, how do I know it's affected by carpal tunnel? Well, I do have a patho with a little stethoscope that covers some of the common ailments that go along with the abductor pollicis brevis, one of those being carpal tunnel syndrome, and I can actually read through that full definition. I can do that, and I can see different areas and see where those areas, if affected or not by carpal tunnel, and there goes carpal tunnel there. There also goes carpal tunnel at some of the band areas, the flexor rectinaculum, which also has carpal tunnel, and then extensor rectinaculum. So all of the above. But for this activity, we're going to go ahead and select the abductor pollicis brevis, and we want to do a deeper dive. So we're going to go ahead and explore the muscle, and we're going to open up one of our animated views. Now I'm going to go ahead and jump into Z view so that you can see in here how the flexation of that hand works. And again, we still got the capabilities to select some of the areas, but if you're looking on screen, you no longer see those. The focus of this and being able to show this model is how to really look at up close and personal and be able to further discuss how the abductor pollicis brevis can be affected by the carpal tunnel in conjunction with some of the other areas like the flexor rectinaculum, etc. So then we can go ahead and flip out of Z view, and it will take us back into the regular view where we now can see that definition again. So today, just a little bit of information on how to be able to jump between 2D and the augmented view, especially if you have to do a recording or be able to see in a version where you do not have access to the technology right in front of you. Thank you.
Awesome. So,
Hello.
So as we close it out, I wanted to, leave it open for any questions. Otherwise, I want to encourage all of you to follow up with Nathan or any of your Bluegrass representatives if you have any specific questions. That is my cell phone. If you have something in particular you wanted to answer, offline, I'm more than happy and can be available for you to answer any questions about curriculum alignment or any funding options that you may be exploring. I do, in my role, help a lot of districts and institutions that are trying to leverage different Title I, II, III, IV, Perkins. We are eligible for all of those. We are just educational technology, and we are aligned to an industry credential. So I'm happy to help. Nathan, anything else?
I have posted in the chat for those of you that may have not signed up for the Allied Health webinar, which will start in about 7 minutes, and we'll go into a lot more depth of that than what you saw Michael do earlier. The link is there in the chat, and that's a direct link to the session. So feel free to use that if you didn't sign up, and feel free to join. Maybe if you've watched this session and you know somebody real quick that might get something out of the Allied Health session and they're available, you might want to send that link to them and they can join us as well. We appreciate everybody coming and being part. Does anybody have any questions that they need to ask Michael before we end this and head over to the next webinar?
Hey, Mike, Steve Saccone here. Can you just talk about the hardware and how it's a Windows 10 computer and that it's not just dependent on the zSpace apps and can be used for multiple uses?
That's it. Great point, Steve. And what's important for everybody to know is this is a Windows 10 device. So this is able to be leveraged. You can still do all your teaching. And the reason this works with an LMS is after you record your videos on the same, you can turn it right in. You open up your web browser and you go ahead and use it. This is what we've done as a company is we reversed where the Oculus is all, this is it, that's what you do. We took all that and put it inside of a computer. So it allows you to really maximize your dollars and be efficient. And this laptop cart can now service as a testing cart, as a day-to-day cart that you're using. And you have the added advantage that if you want to take apart a human, a cow, or a car, or a robot, you can do all that together and still leverage this as a Windows device. So it's very IT friendly, and we help you with all the installation process and everything. So thank you those for the comments and that you enjoyed the webinar. Thank you for joining us today. Sweet.
Anybody else? Well, I thank you guys for attending. Once again, if you have any questions about anything with zSpace, please feel free to contact a representative at Bluegrass. My information was put on that screen earlier. nhicks@bluegrasset.com. And we will get you pointed to the representative that is in your territory to make sure that you get any questions answered, that you get the quotes that you need, and that we can move forward and help you guys in any way that you have.